Welcome back. So we are continuing on our journey with tarot messages by Human Design profile. So if you're here, you're an opportunist, role model for 6 profile, or you're just curious and maybe you don't know your profile. If you don't know your profile, there is a link in the description below. To get yours, you will need the same information that you need for your natal chart. So birth date, time, and location. Human Design is a bit more sensitive to the time of day or the time that you were born, because there are certain aspects that can change depending on the time of day. That's not every time either. Like for me, it didn't matter what time I was born. On the day I was born, I was going to be a manifesting generator 5/1 profile. I think there were like certain gates that might have changed, but for the most part, nothing did. But I have seen charts where just within 2 hours, like a 2-hour difference can change the type or the profile or both. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. If you don't know your exact time of day, time of birth, maybe you've been told throughout your life that you were born during a certain time of day. You might also have an intuition also, because I truly believe that we do have an intuition about those type of things. And, you can just use a time that correlates to that time. I don't know why my finger is so itchy. Sorry. My hands are kind of dry. It was like playing around with plaster. So anyway, just be aware of that. Of course, if you really, truly do not know, you can use noon. You can also just play around in there. Like, it's really easy to change your birth details. So you can play around and see if it does affect anything. But once you do put in that information, you'll get something that looks like this without all of the notes, of course, but it's your body graph unique to you. You'll see your type, your definition, your strategy, your profile, inner authority, your not self theme, and your incarnation cross. And of course, for the purposes of these videos, we're going to be using your profile. However, I would also emphasize taking a look at your strategy and authority. There's a ton of videos out there, a ton of blogs that you can read about your strategy and authority, which has to do with your type. And all of that comes from this information in your body graph. Now, your strategy and authority kind of helps you navigate the quote unquote correct experiences for you, and maybe the experiences that are not correct. So, understanding that kind of helps you navigate through experiences and just through life in general, where your profile, like I kind of see it as being something that almost kind of helps you navigate relationships. It almost helps you navigate people and how you interact with the world. So the last 2 readings we did, we're reading from the definitive book of Human Design. I hope this isn't shaking too much. Let me see. Is that okay? Sorry, I don't know. Okay, sorry. How many times did I just say sorry? Like 12 in the last 30 seconds? So we started with the background. We read the personal last time. We're going to finish up with this interpersonal here. And then, of course, we'll get to the tarot message. So it says, to properly raise a 4th line child, we need to give them time to mature from dependents to benefactors. They should not be rushed out into the world. 4th lines can be dependent for a long time. But once they come into their own, they make an important shift, recognizing how important it was to have a benefactor themselves. With their characteristic loyalty, they will in turn take care of those who took care of them. Many 4th lines will become philanthropists. benefactors to society as a whole, and create foundations that open up opportunities for others. Relationships are everything for fourth lines. The quality of their lives is in direct proportion to the quality of their networks. 4/6s operate as a third line, however, during the first stage of life, and they can be bumped into by relationships and networks that do not work. The most valuable guidance that a parent can offer during the first 30 years of a 4/6's life concerns the relationships that they enter into, as they can determine the success or failure of the flowering into a transcendent role model that will take place after the age of 50. At times, 4/6s can be fence sitters, as the fourth line wants involvement and the sixth line simply wants to watch. We need them to come down off the fence, however, and share their astute observations with us. The opportunist role model has a generous spirit that wants the best for everyone, and they are able to bring love into the world with their warm hearts and wise heads. When their trust is broken, however, their sensitive hearts can be easily wounded, and the warm heart can turn cold and even mean when it is rejected. Oh, Brad Pitt is a 4/6. Al Pacino, David Beckman. Oh, Beckham, excuse me, Beckman? Who is that? That's funny. Okay. Clearly still not able to use words. Very interesting, though. Does that sound like you? Were you pushed out too soon? Do you feel like you were maybe a little bit more dependent on your caregiver for a little bit longer than maybe other people? You know, like the thing about human design that I've, like it's just one of the many things that I love about it is that there's this quality of like validation that comes with it. Because maybe you did need a little bit more support and maybe you didn't get it, and maybe you didn't even understand why you had that kind of inherent need, or things just maybe worked out to where you needed to have a bit more assistance from, again, your caregiver, your guardian, whoever it was. And maybe, if you didn't get that, how has that affected your life, your interactions, how you view people, if you have children, how does that, and especially too, like, if they have a fourth line in their profile. So what would that would be 2, 4, 4, 1, 1, 4. Like, do you recognize that in them? But, maybe since you didn't get it yourself, you're like, well, I didn't get it. I turned out fine. But, just kind of recognizing that, what if you did get it, right? Like, what if you can provide that now? If, again, like I said, if you have a child that has a fourth line, and, one of the major kind of things with human design is deconditioning, because there's this understanding that for the most part, we don't escape childhood unscathed, right? There's conditioning, there's wounds, there's trauma, there's, and especially that sixth line in the first 30 years of your life, that trial and error process. Like you could have gone through some shit, you know? And again, even recognizing that that was part of your process and how that can even maybe help you transform into that role model. Let me just, we're getting there. I know I'm just kind of talking, but it says way back in the background part, it says the opportunist investigator represents an interesting juxtaposition of the socially open and friendly fourth line and the unconscious, introverted, and insecure. Nope. Sorry. Here we go. The opportunist role model has the potential to be an important and influential representative of what it means to live a nine-centered life. By nine-centered, it means, you know, there's 9 centers in our body graph. The head, the ajna, throat, G center, the heart or will, ego is sometimes what it's referred to, solar plexus, sacral root, spleen. Completing the personal destiny process begun by the 1-3 profile. 4-6s externalize their foundation and model through self-awareness what it means to live uniquely as yourself. Right? So like it was saying, like universalizing, externalizing what it means to be uniquely you. You know, like you went through your experiences, your discovery period, your trial and error period, right? And then from like 30 to 50, you were on the roof is what they call it. Just observing, maybe retreating a little bit, focusing on really kind of like, you know, establishing a foundation, maybe even really honing in that network that the fourth line does so well. And then like it was saying, after the age of 50, you emerge as this, you know, role model, able to draw on those experiences and really affect the people that are in your network. But not just them, right? I mean, like they're going to tell other people and other people. It's like a word of mouth thing. I believe the last reading, it was talking about how you're not here to influence strangers, but here to influence those people who are familiar with you. But that just keeps on building and keeps on building and keeps on building, right? I mean, people aren't strangers for very long. That just means, and I believe the example that it gave last time was, you know, like if you have to, or if you're asked to give a speech in front of a new group of people, it says, you know, maybe just show up a little early and network, you know, introduce yourself. Say hi, you know, so people just have that little bit of familiarity with you, you know. Okay, I know, I'm talking forever. So there we go. What's the message for our 4-6s? Here we go. Well, that's quite a way to start. We have death, rebirth, the King of Swords, the Two of Cups, 8 of Wands, the Emperor, and the Lovers. I can't even tell you how many times the Lovers has come out in these readings. I don't think I've seen the Lovers as many times in any tarot reading I've ever given as I have, specifically with these last 7 readings I've done. It's just so interesting. And even, you know, it's interesting to see this combo too. So we'll, of course, go through each card. Can you hear that loud ass car? Like, okay. So, like I said, we start with death and rebirth here. This is a card of Scorpio. You could be dealing with a Scorpio. Doesn't have to be. But death shows up when it's almost like I'm getting this feeling of really trying to hold on to something. It could be an old way of life. It could be an old relationship. It could be, you know, an old pattern of behavior, an old way of thinking. But when death shows up, it's like, you know, I'm going to take this out for, like, it is done, you know? You know, like, they're coming to almost, I'm trying to put like words to the feeling. I keep getting this like image in my head of like, you know, a farrier where, you know, they're carrying it, the energy onto the next realm or whatever, you know, which is really kind of interesting. But I also love how this card specifically, you know, talks about rebirth, because that is exactly what it is. I always, anytime a death card comes out, I always say whatever that saying is. I don't know who said it, where it came from, but beginnings disguise themselves as endings. Okay, sorry about that. My dog was going crazy. The dogs across the street were going crazy. So, beginnings disguising themselves as endings, right? Like there's clearly an energy here where it's like, well, anytime I see the death card paired with the 8 of Wands, it tells me that what has been going on is a block, like blocking the flow of energy. I always see it as gripping too tight, or even, you know, like when you kink a hose. Oh my God, my hose. Oh, I immediately triggered myself because my hose is like kinked all the time. It does not, you look at it and it just kinks, and I'm like, brr. Anyway, so anytime when I see these two together, this is, you know, blocking the flow of energy, because the 8 of Wands is fast moving. You know, all of these wands come in here, right? And it's like this explosion kind of happens. Now, wands have to do with action, communication. I see them as being information cards also. But you know, it's about desires and passions and creativity and, you know, like going for the thing. And when death is paired with it, it's like there has been no going for the thing. The hose is kinked. So it's like the energy can't get through. Which is fine. You know, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. Like, we all need to kink our hose sometimes, you know, like just to recoup if need be, rejuvenate, you know, take a little time out if we're feeling burnt out. But, you know, when death shows up, it's like, okay, it's time to unkink the hose. Oh my gosh, how many times am I going to say kink and unkink? But I do want to write that down because that's probably what I'm going to that's probably what I'm going to name this video. Unkink the hose. Oh my gosh. Hilarious. And it's interesting because we have the King of Swords and the Emperor here. And they're like they're like looking in different directions. But the Emperor is the energy of all of the kings put together. But it's like, you know, we're focusing on this one king of swords, which swords have to do with our thoughts, our intellect. I see them as being ego also, because that's generally where we hear our ego is in our minds. And when we get to the king, that's the highest expression of the suit, right? So there's this clearness of thought. And, you know, in this card, he's sitting on top of a mountain. So there's this achievement that goes on here also. And look at little Owlie. I just realized that this is a sword. And, you know, he's also got a sword in his hand there. So there is this feeling of I want to say going against tradition. You know, if this sword has been up there for a while and, you know, maybe it was placed by a prior king, right? You know, somebody else who had reached this level on the mountain. But this king is holding their own sword. So it's like independent thinking also. Something about just not necessarily following tradition. And by tradition, that can mean literally anything to me. Like, you know, maybe you want to start doing something, whatever it is. And maybe, you know, you've been researching how other people have done it, but you're like, I don't want to do it the same way they did it. But it's just, again, it's like looking for that information. It's like almost kind of like knowing what's possible, but you even want to like expand on that. Like, you know that there's even more that's possible. And really, not like in a competition type of way, because I don't know. I'm not really all that competitive, but he could even just be taking a break right here and be like, I'm going to continue to go on further. This could just be a stopping point, catching my breath, you know? Maybe you even need to spend some time in nature and almost like, you know, allow your mind to expand. Like I'm like getting this feeling of like sitting in nature and literally opening your crown chakra, like allowing it to expand further than maybe you even would have originally thought, or, you know, like really allowing it to open up. And we have the Emperor here because, and you know, and the Emperor talks about authority, confidence. Who is the Emperor? Is that Aries? So Mars, I mean, he's sitting on Mars there. There's this chessboard. He's got a chess piece. I don't know which chess piece that is. And then, of course, the sign of Aries there. But this is really like there's this feeling of really wanting to take things to a new level. But it's also like I don't get this feeling that it's like I said, I don't get a feeling that it's competitive. I don't get a feeling that it's like ego driven by any means. I get the feeling that you know that it's possible. And like I said, that can be in any area. This could even just be you, you know, pushing yourself a little bit more, because maybe you've been in this energy where you have had your hose kinked and you know that. And it was serving a purpose. But maybe, you know, over the last little while, you've been getting these little pings that it's coming time to unkink the hose and let the energy flow, because it's almost like you recognize in yourself that there is untapped potential. And it's almost like, you know, this curiosity to even see what the hell that is. Because YOLO, right? Like, why not? There is no reason why not, except for the dumb shit that we tell ourselves, and I'm totally guilty of that too, but it is dumb shit. So and what is so incredibly effing cool is that we have the Two of Cups and the Lovers here. And at first, of course, right? I mean, you can look at these two cards and be like, oh my God, you know, there's some sort of like soulmate, soul connection, you know, like destined type relationship. If you connect to twin flame, whatever, you know, any of those kind of destined, divine counterpart relationship, right? Like if you connect to any of those things, you can see that between these two cards here, right? Literally. Even the complexions. I mean, you know, like you could be meeting somebody of a different race that can have an effect on you, of course. I mean, you know, if we want to see this as being literal, you know, I'm just going to say it because it's here, it showed up. This could be that by This process here, right, because we're moving through these energies, this shows up, right? I mean, the Two of Cups is like the minor arcana to the Lovers. And the Two of Cups talks about sharing your emotions with somebody else. We start with the Ace of Cups, right? Where our cup is full. It's overflowing, actually. So we are so fulfilled in ourselves, right? Like we are giving ourselves so much love that we have enough to share with other people. And that's the Two of Cups. However, the other shows up with their Ace of Cups. We have two Ace of Cups here. So both people, all people are coming in with their cups full and overflowing. So it's not 90-10, it's not 80-20, right? It's like there's this reciprocal energy going on here, this reciprocal exchange. It's like 100 and 100, right? It's not even 50-50. Like I said, like both cups are full. So, and you're both coming into the partnership or the meeting with these full cups. And then it's just how, those energies just kind of like intertwine and work together, and it's beautiful and it's magical. We have the sun back here, and like and then it just, almost kind of matures into this beautiful arrangement, right? I mean, like we can see the feminine here, just like this surrender and like receiving, right? Because that's the feminine energy, is flow and receiving and intuitive, nurturing. And then we have the masculine here, and the masculine it's the energy, not the gender. So this isn't gender related. It's just the energy. So, whoever encompasses either one of these things. But we can see that the masculine here holding her up. His eyes are open, hers are closed, right? Being present and grounded. It's really kind of sexy, right? And every single time this card has come out, and like I said, I mean, gosh, I feel like it's come out in more than half of the readings, maybe not, I don't know. But I always every time I like stare into it, I get so lost in this energy. There's like these swirlings going on. You can just kind of feel the energy, and like, the wind kind of, the whirling, whisking wind around them, right? It's like nothing else exists except for in this energy. But when you look into the Lovers a little bit deeper, it does talk about how, like the need to balance those two energies, the masculine and feminine. It also talks about choices and decisions, and remembering our free will, almost. So again, this could be a relationship. I wanted to point it out. However, as I was like, working through these cards here, this really started to open up for me because, you know, we're talking about this expansion here, right? And this would be expanding, like, this would be affecting other people, which would talk about that fourth line, externalizing something. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in that third stage over 50. But it does almost have to do with recognizing the role that other people play in your life, and maybe even an opportunity showing up just by word of mouth. And it's like that opportunity almost, you know, makes you feel this way. It's like, you know, this energy would be happening within you. It doesn't necessarily have to be like somebody else. It can be, like I said, you know, we just talked about that. And again, you know, I mean, this could be in your job, it could be in your relationship, it can be in your family, your friend group. You know, if you're involved in a community of some sort, like this would be really almost like showing yourself. Recognizing that you have the capacity to expand a group's consciousness almost. Maybe you have an idea of how to help the business you work for expand, or but in like doing so, it's almost like, you know, they would recognize the impact of that, and you would be offered like a higher position or more responsibility, but like with more money, because we don't, you know, it's 2022, we don't do more responsibility without more money. Very interesting. And too, you know, like if you are affecting, like I said, you know, a community, your other people, is I'm just going to say other people, then it's kind of like they are going to be the ones kind of surrendering to your knowledge, like what you're saying. Like they are just really going to soak it in. Very interesting. It's so, what is this? Okay. Okay. It's interesting because, so at the bottom of the deck, we have the 10 of Swords. And, you know, 10s talk about completion in the minor arcana. We started at the ace, we ended the 10, right? So right after the 10 is the ace again. So when we get to the 10 of Swords, it talks about a little bit of surrender, but also kind of like defeat, because it's generally depicted as somebody's laying on the ground with 10 swords in their back. And like I said, swords having to do with our thoughts, our intellect, right? But it's also like those mental gymnastics. So it's kind of like you have thought and overthought and analyzed and overanalyzed every which way that something can go. And it's like the only thing that there is left to do is to actually do the thing, which is the Eight of Wands. So, and I love this depiction because it's really like, this is a card of like, there's this surrender, but it's also almost kind of like we have these blackbirds up here, or crows, whatever they are, that represent the swords. And they're all in motion. They're flying away. And she's walking, the right side of the card is future. The left side of the card is past. So she's focused on future, moving forward. Right? But then we have the Seven of Swords underneath that. And I always see the Seven of Swords as being the card of fooling yourself. It does talk about betrayal, some manipulation, people being sneaky, right? Because it's kind of like nighttime-ish. We have these crows again. He's got a knife in his hand, being a bit suspect, right? But it also talks about taking risks. And maybe you need to do that under the cover of darkness. But this would be like, not giving yourself enough credit, or thinking you don't have the time, thinking you're not ready, thinking, whatever those stories are that we tell ourselves. And then we have the Queen of Swords here. Again, for future looking here. She's looking to the left. There's this, kind of pondering here, right? And then we have the Knight of Pentacles, which talks about, pentacles have to do with our money, time, our physical bodies also. And the Knight of Pentacles is the slowest moving. I mean, he's literally off of his horse just walking. But again, right, barefoot. He's got his feet in the grass, like connected to earth, right? Like I was saying with the King of Swords over here, getting into nature. But there's this commitment and dedication that comes with the Knight of Pentacles, because it takes time for things to actualize or materialize. But it's also, this knight understands that putting in the work and the dedication and commitment is going to pay off. Like, look at all these pentacles popping out of the ground, right? He's got one on his back. He's got one on his hand. There's all of these other ones that, it almost kind of looks like they're just following him. So again, like, just being focused on it's like not allowing yourself to gauge your success prematurely. Because whatever it is, right, it is going to take some time. But it is going to reward you in dividends. And then we have the Ace of Pentacles here. It could open new doors for you. By way of, making money, by way of your health, free up some time, whatever it is, right? That we're talking about an ace. So this is a new beginning. The Wheel of Fortune. Your luck is changing, right? I mean, like the energy is shifting. Then we have the Hanged Man, the Queen of Wands, a magician. Like, oh my gosh. There could be, like, through this process, if you are not in partnership, there could be, you know, somebody that you do meet along the way. Because we have the King of Swords. Not very far, we have the Queen of Swords. So we have, you know, kind of this pair here. And then, you know, there's the Queen of Wands, and then not right behind the Magician is the King of Wands. I mean, there could be more than one possibility. You know, somebody might come in who's super logical, very heady, right? Thinks a lot. There could even be, you know, this Emperor, like I was saying, you know, this is somebody that encompasses all of the kings. But we didn't see the Empress, so I'm not necessarily including him. But, you know, or the King of Wands is more entrepreneur, creative, like really kind of thinks outside of the box. Very interesting. What a cool effing reading. I'm really excited for you. Unkink your hose. Because really, and again, you know, I mean, it would even be something about looking into your strategy and authority, of course, too. But like I said, you know, if you've been getting those little hints, those little pings that it's time to do this, this is that confirmation. And again, you know, it's not to say that everything is going to change overnight, but it's, you know, starting to head in the direction that you know is possible, and really kind of committing to that with that Knight of Pentacles, and understanding that even if it's slow moving, slow growing, on the other side of that is going to be absolutely amazing. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for allowing me to read your cards. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.